Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cozy English Stories. Tonight, I have a special tale for you, one that explores the true meaning of wealth and happiness. It's called Accumulation in Gold. I hope you find it both relaxing and thought-provoking. So find a comfortable spot, take a deep breath, and let's begin. In a small, forgotten town nestled between rolling hills, lived a man named Silas. He wasn't known for his kindness or his wisdom, but for his singular, all-consuming passion: gold. Silas was a goldsmith, but he rarely sold his creations. Instead, every piece he crafted, every coin he earned, was added to a growing hoard hidden beneath the floorboards of his dusty workshop. His life was a simple, repetitive cycle. He would wake before the sun, work tirelessly at his forge, melt down old jewelry, and shape the gleaming metal into bars and coins. He ate simple meals of bread and cheese, wore clothes until they were threaded bare, and spoke to no one unless absolutely necessary. The townspeople whispered about him. Some said he was a miser, others believed he was mad, but Silas paid them no mind. The only sound that mattered to him was the clink of gold against gold. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, a young girl named Alara wandered past his workshop. Unlike the other children who ran from the grumpy old man, Alara was drawn by the rhythmic tap-tap-tapping of his hammer. Peeking through a grimy window, she saw him hunched over his workbench, his face illuminated by the warm glow of a single candle and the even warmer glow of the gold he was polishing. She didn't see a scary man. She saw someone deeply focused on something beautiful. The next day, she returned, and the day after that. Finally, gathering all her courage, she knocked on his door. Silas, startled, opened it a crack, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What do you want?" he grumbled. Alara held out a small, smooth river stone, painted with a tiny, smiling sun. "I made this for you," she said softly. "I see you working so hard, and I thought you might like something bright." Silas was stunned. No one had ever given him anything. He took the stone, his calloused fingers surprisingly gentle. He didn't smile, but he didn't slam the door either. He simply nodded and retreated back into his workshop. He placed the painted stone on a dusty shelf, a tiny speck of color in his world of gold. Alara continued her visits. She never asked for anything. Sometimes she would just sit on his doorstep and hum a tune. Other times, she'd tell him stories about her day, about the fat robin she saw in the market, or the sweet taste of the wild strawberries she found in the woods. Slowly, miraculously, Silas began to change. He started leaving the workshop door slightly ajar. He'd listen to her stories, and occasionally, he would grunt a reply. One day, Alara arrived with a tear-streaked face. Her favorite doll, a simple cloth figure her mother had made, had lost a button eye. She had searched everywhere but couldn't find it. Seeing her distress, Silas felt a strange and unfamiliar pang in his chest. Without a word, he went to a forgotten corner of his workshop, retrieved a tiny scrap of gold, and went to his forge. He worked through the night, not melting the gold into a bar, but carefully shaping it into a tiny, shining button. The next day, he presented it to Alara. Her gasp of delight was a sound more precious than any he had ever heard. She hugged his legs tightly, thanking him over and over. Silas stood stiffly, unused to such affection, but a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with his forge. That small act of kindness was like a key turning a long rusted lock. Silas began to see the town and the people in it through new eyes. He noticed the baker, who always had a kind word for everyone, struggling with a broken oven door. He noticed the librarian, whose glasses were held together with tape. He noticed the farmer whose tools were old and worn. He began to use his gold. He paid a blacksmith to fix the baker's oven. He bought the librarian a new pair of sturdy glasses. He purchased a new set of tools for the farmer. He didn't ask for thanks. The joy and relief on their faces were payment enough. The townspeople were astonished. The grumpy miser was helping them. The whispers about him changed from suspicion to wonder. Children no longer ran from him. Instead, they would greet him with cheerful wapes. Silas found himself smiling back. His workshop, once a fortress of solitude, became a place of quiet community. Alara was a frequent visitor. and sometimes other children would join her, watching in awe as Silas crafted small, beautiful things, not to hoard, but to give away. He made a delicate golden feather to be used as a bookmark for the library. He crafted a tiny bell for the collar of the baker's cat. His hoard of gold beneath the floorboards began to shrink, but for the first time in his life, Silas felt truly rich. The weight of his loneliness was being replaced by the lightness of connection. He learned the names of his neighbors. He shared stories. He even learned to laugh, a deep, rumbling sound that surprised everyone, most of all himself. One day, the mayor of a neighboring wealthy city came to visit. He had heard tales of a man with an immense treasure of gold and wanted to see it for himself. He arrived in a fancy carriage, dressed in silks and velvets, expecting to be shown a vault overflowing with riches. Silas greeted him calmly and invited him into his workshop. The mayor looked around the simple room, his eyes scanning for the treasure. "I've heard you are the wealthiest man in these parts," the mayor said, a hint of challenge in his voice. "Show me your gold?" Silas smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. He didn't lead the mayor to the loose floorboard where only a few coins remained. Instead, he gestured toward the window. Outside, the baker was pulling fresh, fragrant loaves from his newly fixed oven. The farmer was tilling his field with his strong new tools, and Alara was skipping down the street, the sun glinting off the tiny golden button on her doll's eye. "There," Silas said, his voice filled with a quiet pride. "There is my treasure." The mayor was confused. He saw only ordinary town life. "I don't understand," he said, frowning. "That is not gold." Silas's smile widened. "It is something far more valuable," he explained. "It is the happiness I was able to share. Each piece of gold I gave away returned to me 100 times over, not as metal, but as joy, as friendship, as community. My gold is no longer locked away in the dark. It lives and shines in the lives of my friends." The wealthy mayor left that day with a thoughtful expression on his face, perhaps a little poor in certainty, but richer in wisdom. Silas continued to live his life, no longer a miser but a beloved member of his town. He still worked with gold, but now his craft served a different purpose. It was a tool to build bridges, to mend what was broken, and to bring a little light into the world. He had learned that true wealth isn't something you can count or hide away. It's the warmth you feel when you help a neighbor, the sound of a child's happy laughter, and the love that is reflected back at you when you choose to share what you have. His greatest accumulation was not in gold, but in the richness of a life well lived and well loved. And that brings us to the end of our story. I hope the tale of Silas and his discovery has given you a moment of peace and something to reflect on. True wealth really does lie in the connections we make and the kindness we share. Thank you for joining me tonight at Cozy English Stories. I hope you have a wonderful and restful night's sleep. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Good night.